All right, folks, welcome back from the commercial break. And as promised, a very special guest joining us from the Heritage Foundation today is Joel Griffith. And he's been part of a project that I think is one of the most important things I've seen at the beginning of this new year. The construction of a map and database showing the many places in America where government imposed restrictions on everyday Americans. And then their political leaders, well, they flouted them themselves. Joel, welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks for having me today.
It's an honor to have you on. Tell us a little bit about the inspiration for this project. I think it's just it's a thing that journalists used to do. I'm so glad the Heritage Foundation did it. But tell us what inspired you to do it and what you found.
Well, a lot of us at Heritage and my colleagues, we have been, of course, personally impacted by the shutdowns, as have all of us. And over time, just noticed so many stories of county commissioners, governors, mayors, judges that have pushed onerous restrictions, some of them unconstitutional, on the citizens of their communities. And yet, when the cameras are off, or when they think the cameras are off, they're actually engaging in the very behavior that they're telling us to refrain from. And we're not talking about bad behavior per se. We're talking about things like going to dinner, having a family get together, going to a party or on a vacation. And there's repeatedly, from coast to coast, told us not to do these things, and yet they have. Now, I think one of the biggest examples that comes to mind is the state of California, where once again the state's under nearly a statewide shutdown. You can't even get a bite to eat in most restaurants without running criminal penalties. But yet, think back to a few months ago when the state assembly met. All the freshman legislators got together and they took a picture, and they were all socially distanced for the cameras. And then what did they do after? They all went to dinner together,
they sure
non-socially distanced. And there's nothing wrong with going to dinner. Don't get me wrong. It's just that these politicians are telling us we can't do it, but yet they're doing it the moment they think the cameras are put away.
So give us a sense of just the scope of this hypocrisy, this double standard, this two ways of living, one for the Department of Us and the rest for the rest of the world. How many instances have you been able to document of officials not following their own restrictions?
Now, there are many dozens. I think we have about 4 dozen that we have posted, some of the most egregious ones. But here's actually one from my old neighborhood in Lakeview, Wrigleyville, Chicago. The Alderman Tunney, owns some restaurants. There's a lot of nice little cafes in Chicago.
Sure.
And those have all been shuttered indoors. But guess what? His restaurant was allowing indoor dining at a restaurant that he owns for a few of their favorite customers. And they didn't stop until they got caught. And once again, I'm all for having a bite to eat and a coffee indoors.
Right.
But in this situation, this is an alderman who the alderman restricted the city council there and the mayor. They've shuttered these businesses, but yet he kept his open. And that is just so wrong.
Oh, my gosh.
Think of Dr. Deborah Birx, fine doctor. She's been advising the administration and communities on COVID, and was telling people, don't get together for Thanksgiving dinners, don't get together for Christmas, put all of this off. And what did she do? She actually went to her Delaware vacation home with numerous other family households. And there's nothing wrong with getting together with family. I got together with, I think, 6 households in my extended family for Thanksgiving. But I'm not out there telling people stay home and don't get together with your families. Right. She was. And yet she did that when it came to her own life.
There's the obvious political consequence of this, the hypocrisy issue, the shaming. But there's also another question constitutionally, which is there's supposed to be equal protection, equal treatment under the law. Have any of these instances that you've documented resulted in any lawsuits or any claims by people that we created two classes of citizens, one, the privileged and entitled in government, and those, the rest of us in average America? Any sense that this is going to lead to litigation or challenges anywhere in the places where you've documented it?
I don't know of any litigation based on that. Oh, that's an excellent question. And certainly we have a de facto situation in which people are trying to set laws that they aren't applying to themselves. But on the surface, the law does apply to everyone. I think what we are seeing in a lot of states are a number of successful lawsuits, both by private parties, but also by state legislators trying to block some of these emergency shutdown orders. We've seen victories in Wisconsin. We've seen
Right.
victories in the state of Michigan. We've actually seen victories in the Supreme Court against some of these orders in places like New York that have prohibited religious assembly, where you've got religious assembly prohibited, but yet you've got other types of assembly that are prohibited, whether commercial or protests that are supported by the left-wing government. So I think it's very important that we as private citizens challenge where warranted these unconstitutional orders. This is really fraying on people's it's not just a business matter, although businesses are suffering and going under because of this.
Sure.
It's also a matter of our civic communities, our faith communities being frayed, relationships that are going backwards because we're not able to communicate with each other face to face. And of course, just that very necessary human interaction. This is really weighing on people spiritually, emotionally, psychologically. And I think we should be pushing back peacefully, of course, where warranted, and we can do this through the courts. We're seeing success across the country.